Alright, this is Christopher Fawcett once again, and this is a request assigned for Jordan, and the name of this video is Horrifying Haunted Houses That Took It Too Far by Mr.Nightmare. So let's check it out. Yay!
Getting into the topic of today's video, I want to thank Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. With rent, gas, and groceries becoming more and more expensive.
Skip that.
For you, Mr. Nightmare, or click the link in the description.
Let's get into
The
it.
first haunted house on this list is Dead of Night. Dead of Night was an attraction run by the Chamber of Horrors on Long Island, New York that closed in 2015. It was regarded as one of New York's most extreme haunted houses, and it had one of the most horrifying
Zombies
many had ever seen. Everyone waited
like a Saw movie right there.
A calming pre-recorded message saying, "We are here for your protection.
Everything will be okay. You are safe. We are here to protect you and care for you.
Yeah, not.
We love you. Nothing is real. All
How to get a snack. Skittles.
Each grabbed an unsuspecting patron and dragged them into the attraction. However, you'd be lucky if you were dragged in. Some people were zipped into body bags and some were thrown over actors' shoulders and carried in. The attraction opened with this very strong abduction scenario. Then the focus shifted to humiliation, which included the smearing of strange substances on patrons' faces and even hitting people in the face with large and painfully heavy objects. Dead of Night has been discontinued from the Chamber of Horrors, but people to this day still hope to see it return. In Chicago, Illinois, there's a haunted house called Miasma, which is just as extreme, if not more extreme, than Dead of Night. Miasma is restricted.
That night looks pretty creepy, but
and patrons may only enter alone. Patrons will be
fuck that. Not alone. I'm not going alone.
Smeared with blood, endure heavy physical contact, and more. It's invite only, however, and patrons who receive an invite commonly describe the instructions in the email to be very vague but clear, and that was to not share the location of where they're going with anyone, to show up alone, and do not show up late. If the instructions were ever disregarded, the experience would end.
That's creepy.
All guests are asked to refrain from sharing details of the experience, making it harder to get many details about what goes on inside. But some patrons have described their experiences to involve physical pain, often leaving with claw marks on their skin, psychological torture, emotional distress, and a lot of violence. Miasma can be very physically demanding, forcing patrons to sometimes crawl through tight spaces. One patron said she at one point forgot she was in a haunted house and tapped out when it started to feel like she was genuinely in a life or death situation. The location isn't even revealed to guests until 24 hours prior, and allegedly the location always changes. Scarehouse, the basement. Underneath the regular, tamer attraction known as Scarehouse in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, used to lie what was known as the basement at Scarehouse, which was a much more intense, immersive, and interactive experience than that of the one upstairs, and it was held inside a nearly 100-year-old historic and apparently actually haunted building. It's been closed since COVID, but it's rumored to be returning soon.
Hell no.
You may enter in pairs or alone, though odds are not many people will be entering this place alone. The actors in this haunted house are incredible.
At least you don't have to go alone in this one.
There's a lot of improvisation and dialogue as you make your way through each scene of what's basically your own personal horror movie.
Get away from my face, please.
Without coming into contact and having to deal with the actors stopping you and messing around with you. There's extreme physical contact, sexual undertones, real electric shock, religious themes, very tight spaces, and much more. Like most attractions I'll talk about in this video, you must sign a waiver before entering. The basement can get so
I ain't signing no waiver until I know what I'm getting into.
It has a safe word to yell out if a patron happens to feel violated or too uncomfortable. The Cult was an attraction located in North Conway, New Hampshire. The Cult had been called the ultimate in terror, only for die-hard fans of true horror, for those who want the experience of real-life terror to test your fears. It was an hour-long attraction, and patrons had to walk through alone. Absolutely no groups allowed. Going through
alone.
Encounter violent situations.
They're going alone.
The actors
Hell
will
no.
lay hands on you many times. As the nervous patrons meet a man before entering the attraction who asks if they have any problems with darkness, heights, claustrophobia, eels, rats, bugs, needles.
Standing right here, afraid of all those.
Most of the patrons were already nervous of what they were getting themselves into. Patrons were given a red card on a lanyard. If one decided the experience was too much, they would give up their safety pass and it would be over. During the experience, patrons would be asked to step into a chairlift that led to a dirt path, which would then lead to a cabin where they would meet a man who would shove them into a booth, yell at them, spray them with unknown liquids, throw a bag over their heads,
No.
and then carry them outside, where the
You touch me, you're gonna get yourself shot.
As patrons
I'm not
continued
joking.
on,
You
it only
touch
got
me in the
worse.
haunted house, you're getting
Throughout
yourself
the
shot.
attraction, patrons would encounter live animals, for example, being forced to have snakes or cockroaches crawl on them. Forced edibles, for example, being forced to drink what the actors would claim as animal urine. Extreme violence, and much more. The cult has been closed since 2013.
Hell no.
The Blackout Haunted House was an attraction that
I
had
did
two
reaction to
locations.
Hannah, the
One-
Horribles video on the Blackout.
One in New York and one in
Yeah.
California.
I did Hannah the
Featured
Horribles
extreme
video on
violence,
this. Sounds like a
full-frontal
fucked up
movement,
haunted house. I
forced
never go
items,
to it. Never.
submersion in water,
Never.
physical contact, and patrons had to enter alone. Patrons were abducted in vans, waterboarded, and even rolled naked in a sheet of plastic and forced to walk barefoot down a hallway. Said hallway would lead to a scene with a horrifically tall figure and frail woman. And if I described the scene, this video would probably get age restricted.
Yeah.
As a patron
Pull a
would
tampon
pass,
out of her
the tall man would
cooch.
stand up, exposing his body, and then threaten to make physical contact.
I'll say it
with the
for you.
patron.
Pull a tampon out of her
Blackout
cooch.
overall relied on darkness, loud noises, violence, and sexual situations to terrify its customers. Until around 2015, it had been a solo-only experience, but starting in, I believe, 2016 or 2017, patrons were allowed to enter in groups. It seems Blackout hasn't been open for the past 2 seasons. Freakling Brothers Victim Experience 3 is a Las Vegas
I must have
attraction
reacted to this
featuring
video
extended
before or
submersion
not.
in water,
Okay, that's
electric
creepy.
shocks, and extreme
That's
physical
Spasm. I
contact.
know that.
The
It's
victim
a
experience was
prop
extremely intense,
from Morbid
and must go
Enterprises.
through alone. One patron said he watched a camouflaged attacker appear out of nowhere, grab his colleague by the foot, then knock her
Okay,
down
those are
and drag
creepy.
her
I don't
down
like
a long
those.
hallway as she
No.
screamed. He was left alone in the darkness until the attacker came back for him and threw him over his shoulder. Patrons will experience electric shock at some point, as well as the feeling of near drowning as they're submerged underwater for extended periods of time. As the title of the attraction suggests, once you enter, you are a victim. You will experience pain and you will be tied up, and you may be carried and thrown.
How is that a haunted
Freakling Brothers
house?
actually run 3
It's a
haunted
torture
houses
chamber.
every
It sounds
year:
more like it.
Castle Vampires, Circus of Horrors, and Gates of Hell. The Gates of Hell became one of the first haunted houses in the country to be R-rated due to graphic content and their requirement of patrons to be over 18 and sign a waiver. The victim experience takes place in the Gates of Hell attraction, and it simulates what it would be believed to be like to die and actually go to
Well,
hell.
you're a creep.
Without giving too much away,
Well, it's like the Insane
victims
Clown
have filmed
Posse.
several scenes where they're touched, forced to get down on their knees, and subjected to things that anyone would find uncomfortable.
Who wouldn't find that whole thing
The
uncomfortable?
Raven's Nest was one of the lesser-known extreme haunted houses.
The
It's been
Raven.
closed since 2009.
Wait.
It had been closed after it was deemed as too extreme by the town. Raven's Nest featured
Raven's
actors who
Nest,
paid
not the
to
Raven,
induce
Raven's
pain on the
Nest.
patrons, as well as other humiliating methods of torture.
Ugh.
The owner, Mike McNair, would hire mostly
That was like
larger
that
and more
deformed girl from
intimidating actors who
Terrifier.
would be capable of easily picking up,
Shit.
tying, or shoving patrons. Visitors would also be kicked to the floor and forced to do things like lick the ground, disgusting
Ugh.
foods and liquids off the floor, and even have actors try to induce vomiting in the patrons. The attraction also
Oh my
played
God,
with
this is disturbing.
having patrons crawl through air vents filled with real
Too far is an
cockroaches and
understatement.
spiders, as well as constant tight and cramped rooms and pathways. There was no safe word, which may have been a small factor in the eventual closing of the Raven's
Then I'm not
Nest.
going to that for this on a fucking safe word.
Many
Fuck
of you
that.
definitely have heard of this last one, McCamey Manor.
Oh yeah, who
This San
hasn't
Diego
heard of this
attraction, if it
fucking
can even be
disgusting
called that, shouldn't
fucking
even be in the same category as
twat
regular haunted
waffle.
house attractions. This place tops
He's
the
a
list
fucking
because
twat
it tends
waffle
to
is
use
what he
extreme
is.
scare
Nobody
tactics
likes
that
him.
are off limits to professional attractions.
He has kids and a
It
wife,
also
which
can't
is
be said that
sick.
what goes on in this place is safe.
Fuck
Participants
his,
are covered
fuck
in
him,
blood, forced
fuck
to
his
eat
haunted
disgusting
house.
things,
Hopefully
threatened
those
with
people
coward
got some
meals,
closure.
stuffed in a clothes dryer, submerged in water for extended periods, physically assaulted, and even given an unwanted haircut. Participants often leave covered
I'd
in
be
blood,
cutting his hair. I'd be
wounds
cutting his
thereof.
fucking scalp
So
off like
far, nobody has made
Terrifier
it through to
2.
the end. There used to be no safe word, and they would only pull the plug when medically necessary. This place plays with people's fears of claustrophobia, with tight spaces and corridors.
No.
People's fears of spiders,
No.
with restrained victims having up to or
Kill
even
it.
more than 4
Kill it.
tarantulas crawling over their faces. People's fears of clowns, and just about anything else you could think of. Perhaps one of the more shocking parts is that the experience can go on for up to 10 hours.
Yeah,
Easily a
fuck
big
that.
contributor to why nobody's made it through to the end yet.
I barely make it a
long
fucking
time, the
second
place
in
didn't have a
this
safe
shit.
word, and Russ, the owner, only added one after he was told he
Shit him in
legally
the fucking
needed to.
face.
But even with
Fuck
the
that
safe
smile.
word, apparently the torture can go on for many people who repeatedly use the safe word, rendering it basically useless. McCamey Manor also garnered a lot of criticism regarding the $20,000 cash prize that they promised to anyone who can make it through to the end.
It was probably
A lot of
fake.
people believing they simply wouldn't allow anyone to win, because oftentimes the workers will decide for the patrons that they're done, even if the patron wants to keep going. McCamey Manor is self-described as a place for extreme horror lovers only, who wish to experience what true terror and gross-out torture feels like. Apparently, there are a lot of people who wish to experience it, as there's a waiting list of more than 20,000 people. There's currently a Change.org petition to close down McCamey Manor for good, with over 180,000 signatures. Thousands of people shun this place for claiming to be a haunted house attraction, and they believe it's simply a torture chamber under disguise.
It is. Most of these seem like that.
Questionable, and he apparently misspells the word liable multiple times to attempt to make certain points of the waiver void. Whatever your thoughts on this place are, anyone would admit it's the definition of a horror attraction.
It's a giant dick rubbed on her neck. Oh man. Yeah. I would never go to any of these haunted houses, any of them. Blackout seems like the most tamest one, but that's not saying much. You had to pull a fucking tampon out of a woman's cooch. But yeah, if you guys have been to any of these haunted houses, please let me know. I would love to know if any of you went to any of these, because my God, they seem more than a scary haunted house. Yeah, I'm gonna go eat dinner, put my skillets back in the pantry. I'll do some more reaction videos, but I just want to take a break and eat for a little bit. But until then, thanks for watching, guys. Take care. See you guys in the next one. Peace.